All right, good afternoon, career and technical education teachers. This is Shannon Williams, your career and technical education consultant at the ISD, and I'm here to give you a few updates, and hopefully it's kind of exciting. I like the way that we're trying to approach some of the changes that are happening in career and technical education. I've been working closely with your district CTE leads, and we decided that, with all of the different changes, probably the best approach was to take and kind of chunk them out so it's a little bit more manageable instead of like throwing it on everybody all at once. Because some of the things that you'll see is that you'll start hearing from your association meetings, or if you do any PD from the Office of Career and Technical Education. There's a lot of different, some minor changes, some big changes, but changes nonetheless. So the CIP Self review has changed. Not that you're still going to have a CIP Self review. There's still audits and reviews, all that's still there. But some of the numbering has changed around. Some of the guidance on certain pieces of the CIP Self review have changed. So what we discussed, myself and your CT directors, is what if we were to take these changes and just kind of do different monthly focus areas? So to help our teachers get everything in order throughout the school year so it doesn't seem overwhelming. So we kind of structured it around like different months and goals and timelines. And obviously by the end of the year, you will be trained on everything. It's just seems like a lot to give you as you're trying to, teach virtually, work with students. So the focus of our October is really advisory and advisory roster and committee. That's what I'm going to talk about today. But just to kind of give you the look ahead, November, we'll talk about the changes to work-based learning and what's coming up. And I'll give you a little to-do for work-based learning in the month of November. December is when I'll lay out the new CIP Self review and walk through that. February will focus on program of studies and making sure that you have an updated program of study for your program. In March, we'll look at your equipment list and your professional development records, and really all of that together is going to get us ready for April and May and June, where we start going, okay, well, we're not using CTE Navigator anymore that we all got used to. We're now going to use this system called GEMS, and training will come on GEMS. I don't want anybody to go to any of their association meetings or different professional development and think that you need to jump into GEMS right now and get things uploaded. We don't need to do that right now. We do need to do it. So I'm not saying we're not going to do it. We do have to do this, but we have all year. I'd like to see how some of the glitches with GEMS work itself out before I try to put all, 250 plus of you into GEMS. I think we can be patient on that. We can kind of get our ducks in a row. So why I'm talking to you today is advisory. So the month of October. Advisory committee requirements have, for the most part, stayed the same, but there was a minor change, which I'll talk about on the next slide. But advisory committee requirements essentially are an advisory roster and 2 meetings. Now, I've seen a lot of teachers in the past think they take the meeting and say, well, I have minutes for 2 meetings, I'm compliant. And that's not actually the case. You cannot forget about the importance of the advisory committee roster, because if the Office of Career and Technical Education was to come in and look at your program, they would want to see those 3 components: that you have a roster and that you've had 2 separate meetings. Now, obviously, your advisory committee roster, you're going to invite those people to your meetings. Some may be able to come, some may not be able to come, but your advisory roster could also include maybe you have a guest speaker who comes in every year. They don't come to your advisory meetings, but they come in as a guest speaker, or they provide job shadows for your students. You consult with them on curriculum resources. Those are all valid people to put on your advisory committee roster because they help consult on your program. And we'll go over different, I'll show you where you can find that stuff. So I'm going to try to keep this brief, but just to keep it, you have a roster and then you have 2 separate meetings. Who needs to be on your roster? You have to have business and industry. They have to be the majority. I'll jump down here. You have post-secondary, a parent, and then this one right here is new. This is the change for this year. So if you've attended any of my trainings in the past, you would have seen special population representative as an optional. They're no longer optional. Under Perkins 5, they've moved to special population representatives. That's a required voting member, and I'll show you that on the roster. So these are the 4 required. The other thing that's important to note, obviously the 2 meetings have not changed, but we did get guidance for this year for 2020, and I don't know if this is going to stay for years to come. But for right now, they can be virtual. So you can do some type of Zoom meeting, Skype meeting. So you can get creative there, but the focus was the roster. So when you look at your roster, what fields need to be on there? Now this one you won't find in the toolkit, unfortunately. I brought that to OCT's attention, but I did get clarification from them what fields have to be on there for it to be a roster. It has to have the member's name, the business name, the title, what area they represent. Are they post-secondary, are they industry? Their email and their phone number, and then you have to indicate who the business chair is. So to kind of bring this is literally the training in a nutshell. The October goal is to create and update your advisory committee roster and schedule your first meeting. You don't have to have had it in October, but get it on the books. Reach out to these people. You have the month to kind of develop this roster, get it together, save it in your files. And in order to assist you with this, I wanted to also attach, you will have attached to this email the program advisory toolkit that was just updated. This is where some of the changes have occurred. I'll point out that on page, I highlighted a few things. This is where it says who the voting members are. The majority has to be from business and industry. I'm not going to go through this whole thing because it's attached for you to review. Who the post-secondary person, or the special education or the special POPs representative can be. And you'll see there's some flexibility there. It could be a special education teacher, a consultant, a parent, paraprofessional, parent, guardian, family advocate, So they really leave it kind of open for you to identify that perfect person to represent your special POPs. A few other things to point out is, the selection. I'm gonna show you at the bottom where you can use some of the free resources for that they provide you. And then this is just different roles. Like I said, I pointed out they can consult on your curriculum. They can do job shadows. You can bring this up at meetings. So take a look at this. The other thing I wanted to point out on page 14, I've highlighted. This talks about the duties of the instructor. So what's your role in this advisory committee? Because technically the teacher is not a voting member. They're a non-voting member, how OCT describes it. But your job, obviously all this, but I'm going to highlight these 2, is to maintain the roster, agendas, and minutes. So you'll notice that when people always ask, or teachers, what do I have to upload into Track? You have to upload a roster, agendas, and minutes into your CIP Self review. So you're going to keep those. And then after the meetings, you're going to make sure you distribute those minutes in a timely fashion so that your advisors know that there's like some follow-up and have a record as well, because they're helping you out. The only other thing I wanted to show you on the toolkit that's attached is at the end, you'll find a bunch of appendix. And there are different letters you could use to help find different advisors. You can copy, paste, customize it. You could send it to students, out to their parents. You could go to local businesses or in your community. But take a look at these, because there's no need to reinvent the wheel if the language is already there. So take a look at that. And then the last thing I wanted you see attached is I updated, again, if you attended any of my PD in the past on CTE 101 or the new teacher workshop from previous years or program advisory, you know, I had created a roster template, but I want to make this very clear. This one is the updated one that has the special category on it. So you'll see special population representative. I do not believe it was on the old roster. So if you're using this as a template, now I'll also say it's not a requirement that you use this template. If you have your own type of template that you want to use for your roster, or your district has a roster that they're asking you to use that. Just make sure that you have what area they're representing, you indicate where the chair is, you have their name, the business, the title, the email, and the phone number, because those are the required fields. So you'll notice that, like, let's say I put in, I'm going to do my industry person first because they are my chairperson. And I created these drop downs that you could use, or just put the chairperson and leave the rest blank, because the chairperson is the only one that's required to be noted. And then I would fill them in. Maybe my next person is my post-secondary. My post-secondary is a voting member, so I put voting member. Then maybe I put in myself. I'll put in the teacher. Technically, I'm a non-voting member, and I can choose that. Now, if you, to break down what these are, to show you where these come from, these are right here. So here's the key. These are your advisory keys. This is your membership key. And then this is a little bit guidance that came straight from the toolkit that I just showed you. I just figured I'd put it right on here so there was no confusion as you're filling this out. Is that this is what's going to show up in the drop-down list. The green indicates those are required voting members, and the majority has to be industry advisors. Okay. You could have other listed on there that are non-voting members. They're not considered part of your membership as far as voting members. So keep that in mind. So if you just kind of read through this at your leisure, but it's really just what I just showed you in the toolkit. It talks about majority from business and industry. It talks about who could be that that special population representative and the flexibility there. And it talks about the 2 per year. And that's pretty much it. So, you know, if we go back and look at, you know, what are our goals for October, you have in this email the toolkit and a sample, the template that you can use, or you can use your own, it doesn't matter. But your goal for October is by the end of the month, you would have had your advisory roster complete and your first meeting scheduled. Now, your local CTE and coordinator or director may ask you for these rosters. They may ask you to send the dates of your first meeting. It's however they want to kind of handle that. But in order to stay up to date, because you'll see me again in November where we're talking about something else, I'd highly advise that you get these 2 components done and ready to go so that we don't fall behind as the year progresses. So I hope this finds you and your family well, and your start of your school year is, I would say, wonderful, but fantastic, and not too troublesome. So I will talk to you all soon, and have a great day.